This is the Marion City Council work session for Tuesday, June 7th, 2016. And I just want to start by expressing our condolences to Councilwoman Kim Etzel on the passing away of her father, a lifelong member of the Marion community, graduated from Marion High School, owned Jubilee Lanes for 40 years. So I think a lot of us are familiar with him, and I know it's been a hard week for you, so appreciate your coming to the meeting. Okay, so we begin with finance. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a presentation regarding Civil Rights Commission first. Is that first? No. Okay.
I am here speaking on behalf of Civil Service, the Commission right now. Just basically to give you an update that they are going to move forward with using a consultant for hiring the police chief position. So what Leanne passed out just shortly was was a scope of service that they have provided for us. We did reach out to another consultant we've gotten references from. They declined to offer, so this was the one that we move forward with. And that scope there kind of lists the process out. Just some main things to bullet point for you guys is that right off the bat we're going to review and update the job description, because I'm not sure how long ago it was, whether or not it was last updated when Harry came on or not. And that they want to develop a position profile, and basically getting all of your input. The commission and some department head leaders, community leaders, all are going to be involved in doing that, determining exactly what the city wants in finding this candidate. And besides from just basic qualifications, are they able to do the job, but what are their main goals for being the police chief? And so that will be some interview process, and we're hoping to have that about the same time the job description is updated, and then post the position. So we're hoping to have the position actually posted within the next week, 2 weeks, once the job description's approved by you guys, hopefully at the next meeting. So with that, then it becomes the advertisement. And the consultants are going to review all the applications for us and really do the search for good candidates, and then kind of whittle them down, is what he said, to at what point they would give about 10 to 15 applications to the commission and have them review which candidates they want to bring to the interview process. And then at that point there's 5 candidates that they would hope to bring forward. And then at that point, the interview process would be similar to what we were talking about, the position profile, where the same on the page 6 of this, it's again involving the mayor, council members, commission, department heads to all be a part of that interview process. And they'll be doing all the background checks for us, so that we don't have our own PD department doing background checks on somebody that may be coming in. And then there's going to be a part of this during that interview process, exactly where it lines up, I'm not sure, but where they come in and have an opportunity to meet with all the 5 candidates. And it's our understanding that they've requested one time where just the police department gets to meet them, and then another time with department heads. And so where you guys fit in there, that you will eventually get to meet all 5 as well. And then moves on to making the offer. So they have notified us that they will make weekly updates. So he'll be contacting me every week and saying this is where we're at in the process. We have already had a lot of people ask me, where we're at in the process, and so we are going to try to, update maybe a spot on our website where, weekly updates, and whether or not we use Facebook to help push some of those notifications. This week we have 10 applicants, and, just kind of moving, so because people are very interested in where we're at in the process. So, and then last but not least is the fees. which is listed on the last page of this scope that she handed out. In your the agenda, it said not to exceed 15,000. That will be amended because, as you see in the actual description in his scope, it is a little more than that, but the expenses directly to Mulder will not exceed 15,000. But then there's also little expenses as far as advertising and stuff that are on top of that, which are not exactly spelled out right here yet. So, do you guys have any questions about that? Again, this is all part of speaking to the commission, for the commission tonight, and so they are recommending that we move forward that in this direction.
So I'm trying to recall, had we anticipated this expense and budgeted it? Or
That I am not positive about that.
Amanda, do you know? Okay, well, that's fine. I'm sure that we can get that answered at some point. I'm just curious.
We can get that for you on Thursday.
I know I did put money in on the budget amendment to cover some of these costs.
You did? Mm-hmm. Okay.
The Civil Service Commission has a budget annually, and I think we did allow a little bit more this year because we knew
Anticipating
coming.
I assume so, but okay.
I think from our standpoint, the important thing this morning's meeting, which I did attend, is that first of all, we have a real first-rate company here. Mm-hmm. Secondly, is it's that commission's desire, and two of the members are here, which would be yours as well, Mayor, that we keep as transparent during this process as we can. There's things we can't say, but he thought that he would have as many as 50 to 60 applicants. And part of the cutting that back will be done by his firm, so the commission doesn't have to sit and go through all those applications. He says he's seen some of them before, because if people are inspiring to be chief of police, they're going other places, and you notice he has a list of where else he's been in here. So I think that from our standpoint, if we're asked questions, we're kind of entering the 90-day phase after this contract is signed, of which time he will bring us up to date weekly. Mm-hmm. So we'll be able to maybe Marion Messenger or something explaining the process and how it works. In the meantime, I think I'm right. I was wrong this morning. 90 days at a time we can name an acting chief. Is that right, Chief?
That's correct.
We have some people in our department who will be applicants, and they probably very well could be acting chief for the period of time. So the department, once our chief gets in his motorhome and heads north, will not be without guidance out there. We will have a acting chief. So I think it's exciting. I feel they made a really wise decision here. This fella is, in fact, an ex-chief of police, and he knows the cop business. And I asked if he was going to meet particularly with our fire chief, and he said he definitely would. I said they have to work closely together, he said this morning, and the sheriff and the Cedar Rapids police and the state police and everyone else. So we're going to get a lot of good feedback for the commission to digest, trying to get down to a list of 10 and then trying to get down to a list of 5, and those 5 will come to town and be interviewed by everyone. And it's going to be quite a process. It's going to take a little while, but we have to do it right, find somebody that's coming in to do it. So we're going to be open about it as much as we can. So we'll know from the commission what's going on.
I'd just like to also say that I know Bill Mulder personally. He was a chief in Des Moines for many years when I was chief here in Marion, and so he has a lot of experience, and he was on the board of the International Chief of Police. So this guy is highly recommended by the international chiefs also. So it's just not the statewide. He's known throughout the country, and he is probably one of the best consultants we could probably get.
Great. Any other questions for now? Thank you for the update.
You realize that we could really save money by not letting Harry retire, and then we wouldn't have to go through all
Cut
that.
his salary back a little bit.
Huh?
I think so.
Too late, I already turned in my resignation.
Denied.
My retirement papers are already in the state.
Denied.
I think so many applied because they thought they were getting the keys to the Mustang, too.
He will not be getting those.
Okay, thank you. Police and fire?
That first one's mine, Your Honor. We have Mark Reddick, who does the simple misdemeanors for the city of Marion for traffic and criminal. And apparently, which was unbeknownst to me and even Don at the time, he hasn't had a raise for 20 years. And I asked Don, you know, what are the lawyers going for? And he said between $140, $150 an hour. And of course, Mark wanted 150. I did my own negotiation, and I said we'll do 145. I talked to Lon, I talked to Don. They both agreed that's more than reasonable. Mark said he's okay with that also. And we have like a 90-day clause in the contract, so if either side wants to get out, they can, so that we're not, you know, set in stone forever on this. So I'd recommend that we go ahead and pay him something we probably should have did at least 15 years ago, I'm saying. I don't know if Don wants to add anything else to it, but.
No, I really don't know how that fell through the cracks, but he doesn't report to me, so.
I think he just woke up one day and said, I should be getting paid more. And he was right, so it's only right. We probably would, he could probably get back pay and be okay, but we're not going to do that. Naturally, it's going to start July 1.
Any questions on that? Okay. Number 2.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Chief.
This is about the ordinance 5.13, with regards to the emergency personnel for the city and how far away they live from their headquarters. I had a discussion with some legal counsel, and they suggested that we add a time limit to travel time and have the 10-mile radius. If anyone should ever want to go against that, I guess, ordinance, it would be hard in court to defend ourselves without the time limit. Here's the reason why.
So it'd be either or?
It would be, yes,
Okay.
either or. And we have people living within the 10-mile limit at this time, but it takes them 25 to 27 minutes to get into the station. We have people that live outside the 10-mile limit, and they're here within 20, 25 minutes. So that's where the issue came to be, and so it's recommended that we add that to the ordinance.
Okay.
Any questions?
Seems to me. Any questions?
I guess, will that affect employees that you currently have, or?
No.
Okay. So none of those will,
Actually, one I was going to make move. It will help him out, actually. I'd rather they all just live here, but we got to do what we got to do. So.
Okay.
And we
Questions?
did also add the paid on call, which is our volunteers. They have to live within the township or the city of Marion. It's a little more stringent because we rely on those people in an emergency to be here as quickly as possible. So, okay, just want to make sure you saw that. Okay.
Okay,
thanks.
thank you, Chief. Number 3?
I think we're engineering, right?
Pardon?
Engineering next? Yep.
Yeah.
Or number 3. Those were the same,
Oh,
aren't they? 2 and 3?
Yeah, 2 and 3 were the same, sorry.
Okay. Okay, number 2 under engineering, 2 and 3 actually, is the 2016 sidewalk assessment project. On May 31st, we did receive 2 sealed bids. The low bid was $128,445, or about 95.5% of estimate. One of the difficulties, I guess, of this bid is that the budget is currently $92,500. We don't typically spend all of that budget each year. But also, so it tends to get carried over. I checked with Lon. There isn't a availability to do the entire scope of this project. However, We are willing and able to reduce the scope, but given council's interest in doing more sidewalks, we thought we would at least present it this way as a project that would be over budget, but the funding is available to do the entire amount. So I guess I'm looking for some direction on whether we want to award it as is, or whether you want we can award it and then reduce the scope with the contractor to be within budget.
What took it over? Because I know when we were making the decisions, it was
Budget's
only a few thousand over.
$92,500.
Right.
That's within our transition plan, and that's our current. It goes up each year, but currently this year is 92.5. So we'd be over.
But I mean,
36,000 over.
When we were originally I'm on that committee, so when we were originally looking at the projects, the estimate for those 4 projects were a few thousand over, and we said, well, we could probably make it work.
Yeah.
And now we're 20-some thousand or 30,000 over.
When we do those,
do we know?
We do those original estimates. We don't know about retaining walls. We don't know about how much driveway has to be replaced. Those are costs that really make the project add up.
Do we know which project took it up over the?
It was generally over the entire.
Every single one was over.
Yeah.
Okay.
The recommendation from staff would be to take, I think it was 27th Street out of the scope. However, I know the committee was very interested in trying to get 27th done. So.
I mean, that could always go on next year too, because the school won't be done this year.
Any other questions or comments on that?
I'd like some direction probably on how you want to proceed. We'll go ahead, like I said, and award if that's your recommendation, but we also need to know whether we should reduce the scope or not.
Any idea where the adjustment would, or where would we take it from?
27th Street would probably have to come out of the scope.
And the money that would be used would be from, Lon said it was from projects before that the money wasn't used, or just?
Yeah, he stated that there was enough. There's about $250,000 in sidewalks and other associated types of projects that would be available. It would just pull from other projects.
Gotcha.
It's non-committed dollars at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were lowest on you wouldn't have to rebid it then.
No, I'm pretty sure they would be more than willing. Bourse would be more than willing to adjust the scope.
Now, the 27th Street, as I remember, because there's a school up the street, was pretty important to a few folks.
And we've done a couple other gaps on 27th, so
Yeah.
this finishes up that system over there, that network.
Didn't one section already get done by a homeowner on 27th? Was that on 27th?
Not yet. There was one individual that wanted to do it, but I don't remember where the address was.
I think they already did it.
Oh, okay.
I'd be in favor of doing it all myself.
Get it done.
Yeah, get it done and over with. And
We can also reduce the project next year if that's what we want to do. If everybody kind of keeps that in mind, we'll just reduce it next year and do a...
I guess that's what I was kind of leaning towards, was if we were to continue with this, obviously we're pulling it from somewhere else, so that would be an option, as scale back a little bit next year.
Yep.
Which would entertain me a whole lot, because I do think as that school goes in, it's going to be a necessity.
Oh, yeah.
Does that sound good to you, Dan?
That works for me. Absolutely. We'll plan on that then. We'll go ahead and award, do the project as is, and then next year we'll submit a project in the 60,000 range.
Yeah. I think we've already committed to these, so I think that's the way.
We kind of are, but we've worked with Bourse before, and I'm sure they'd be willing to reduce it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Number 4 and 5 are the 2016 Winslow Road reconstruction project. We bid this also on May 21st. We had 6 sealed bids, one lowest from Rachi Construction at $994,589.75, or 82.75% of estimate. Work will start no later than July 25th and be completed in 135 working days. We are going to do this project in several phases to help access of those people along Winslow Road because they have limited access from the north or the south, so we'll be doing it. It'll take longer, but at least we can get those phases done part at a time. So we are recommending accepting the bids and awarding the contract to Rachi Construction. Any questions on that?
How many projects do we actually have out with Rachi right now? Is that going to be a problem spreading them thin?
3 or 4. We're finishing up on Albernet Road. Rickliffs has both roundabout projects. So Rachi has the manhole project. I don't know if they have a ton of stuff right now. The Tower Terrace project is Rickliffs. Sure they have that much work this year, actually. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big project to get in and stop on. So, if they run out of manpower or equipment or whatever, so.
Yeah, we tend to keep an eye on them so that they're doing a lot of work for Cedar Rapids too, which we really have no control over.
Right.
But we'll keep after them, and there's working days associated with this, so they'll have to stay with it. The liquidated damages were probably 300, or no, they were more than that.
So awarding them this phase, does that assure that they get the next couple, or is it rebidded, or?
We raised the working liquidated damages to $750 a day, so they won't want to run over.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big hit, so I think they'll keep after it.
2% of
This will force them to get done. It'll be open yet this fall, so.
Yeah. So it'll be rebid again for the next phases, correct?
No, we're gonna do it in phases, but the entire contract includes the entire project.
Oh, this is one contract for all the phases?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to finish each phase before they start the next one. I think there is room for the last phase to be done next year. If they get to the point where we don't let them start that last phase, we'll do it in 17.
So when we say to stop, that stops their working day count?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Next item is the Indian Creek Trunk Sewer Project. The next 2 phases, we've done several with Cedar Rapids. Cedar Rapids has been the sponsor. We've spent about $2.8 million to date out of approximately $40 million project. We have 18 to 20 segments to do, and we've done 3. Marion's portion of the overall project is about 20%. Currently, it is our turn now to be the sponsor, I guess, for the next 2 phases. We're addressing these phases as by need. So where we have capacity issues, we're doing those segments first. So these 2 segments in Marion are currently now the restrictions within the system. So on the right is segment 7, which, as you can tell, goes from approximately Menards down into Cedar Rapids to this location. This one is from Indian Creek and Dry Creek come together here and go up and around and go over to Cedar Rapids as well. Those 2 segments will probably take us 2 to 3 years to complete between acquisitions, design, and construction, and will be fairly complicated, I guess, as far as just the overall project. We are reimbursed through the system for engineering services, so we are proposing to hire a consultant to do all the modeling, the flow modeling, and all the design, all the acquisition plats, everything, and then that will be reimbursed through the contract with all the other jurisdictions. This 2080 agreement, basically all it does is sets up the process for us to go ahead and start hiring consultants, doing some work, and committing everybody to the projects. Currently, these 2 segments are estimated. I have that out. Segment 11 is 2.2 million, and segment 7 is 4.2 million. We currently have 5.2 million committed and lost. We're going to obviously run over that amount, but given the length of time, we'll be back to address those situations in the future. So this is a long-term project. There's long-term funding needed. The amounts just keep going up as we get into future years. So this will increase the capacity till about 2040, 2050 for our expected growth between now and then. So, questions?
Will this section have flow meters in them as well?
We're recommending, we'll go through the study to find out, but we are looking at flow meters as we dump into this system so that we can regulate and measure what we are actually contributing to the system. We are buying a capacity within the system, so many gallons, I'll say, millions of gallons, that we pay for within the construction of the system. I've been working on this for about 12, 13 years, and started right at the beginning to put together the 28E and look at the design and figure out what segments we want to do first. So. Anything else?
So you said the 5.2 million we have already set aside. That's specifically for these two segments?
No, that's for the trunk sewer itself, for our portion of the trunk sewer. Of that, about 2.8 million has been spent already. So you figure out of that, we're 20% on average throughout the segments. The lower 8 segments, the lower 11 segments we participate in. The upper segments that are above us, we do not participate financially in. So
the 2.2 and the 4.2 million, 20% of that would be our?
Approximately, yes.
Okay. And that 20% would come out of what we've set aside?
Yes. With
lost funds and?
Yeah, and the lost funds was specifically set aside for this project.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Number 9 is the request we received from 4010 Shady Oak Drive from Mr. Hale regarding his sewer service to his house. As you can see in the memo that you did receive, we did look at 2 separate options. We wanted to look at the shortest distance to serve his home, and then what we would consider the best design to serve the entire neighborhood in the long term. We did look at this one. This is Eastview here on the south side. This is Shady Oak that goes up 10th Street's over to the east, the new additions to the west. His home is right here. The problem is that there's a hill right in here. So we end up in one place here being 24 foot deep, which is pretty excessive for sanitary sewer. We can service this. We can make it work. It does allow us to serve to the north, but we're only making it 2 foot deeper to get to the north to serve that area. So most of the depth, the excessive depth that we're talking about, is due to his location of his property. The estimate on that project itself is about $217,000. That would include a lot of road reconstruction and would get the sewer to his property. The second option we looked at, this is 10th Street on the right, Eastview is here, his property is right in here. When we originally looked at the annexation out here, we did look at what it would take to serve this property, or the entire neighborhood, and looked at a design that was comprehensive. And within that comprehensive design, we pulled out this segment in orange that serves his property. It does require going across 2 private properties at this low location, and then going down through the streets to the southeast. We did estimate that cost at over $610,000. It would take quite a bit of, probably a year to develop and construct. We're not really recommending doing either. Mr. Hale can reconstruct his septic system as provided by Lynn County. There is quite a bit of benefit to him because of the way the annexation was set up, that they have a base payment of $5,000 and then they pay over 90 years or something like that. Therefore, his upfront cost goes from maybe $20,000 down to $5,000. He is trying to sell the home, so that commitment of long-term cost would be to the buyer and no longer to him. We are not recommending that we get involved in the construction of this sewer. It's quite a bit of commitment and very little payback for the city in the short term. Questions?
Under those guidelines, then we fall back to kind of the same issue we're talking about with all these projects, right? So he puts in a new septic system, has a life of 40 years. Therefore, when we come through later and his septic is fine, he doesn't hook on, we're kind of back to the reverse process to this, aren't we? I mean, so it would be to his advantage to, if he installed a new private system, obviously that passes on to the new buyer.
Yes, and he'll be able to use that system until it fails, as usual, whether he's in the city or whether we put sewer in or not. Lynn County typically allows for him to use that until it is no longer able to be used. He really doesn't lose his investment. It's just a lot more upfront capital cost.
Right.
Questions? So your recommendation is that they do nothing?
Yeah, definitely our recommendation is to do nothing. I don't know that probably is the best thing for Mr. Hale, but for the city, I think it is.
Are you responding to him? Or?
Yes, we sent him a letter yesterday, I think it was, offering to have him come on Thursday. We have sent him our report that's being presented to you within that letter, so he knows what's happening. I've had a few conversations over the phone with him, not recently, but before, so he will know prior to Thursday what we're recommending.
Okay.
Last item I have is for 945 7th Avenue. We have a request from Noah's Archive to put parking in front of his business. This is Noah's Archive here. I think everybody probably knows where it's at. This is 10th and 7th, 9th. Currently we have a straight through lane, 20 miles an hour. This is classified as a major arterial, 7th Avenue. We have a dedicated right turn lane in front of his business and Zoe's that turns on to 10th Street South. We did look at how we could handle parking within here. This is kind of hard to see, but there are room for 3 parking stalls here in the front. We would have to merge traffic into the single lane, which basically what it does today, except for that traffic that's turning right. But then they would have to merge back into the right lane if they were going to go to the right. I see quite a bit people pull up here and then squeeze back over because they end up in this lane. We did look at that. We looked at the report that you see within your memo, your packet. We looked at the different options. We even looked at historically, as you can see, this is City Park here. Noah's Archive is right here. This is the plan for the uptown that does eventually show the narrowing of 7th Avenue and the addition of parking in front of Noah's Archive and Zoe's on both sides. There is parking currently on the north side. Mm-hmm. However, until this traffic gets pushed down to 6th Avenue, we feel TAC feels that increased congestion and chance of rear-end accidents does not really justify putting the parking in there. We're recommending to do nothing at this time. We would recommend that the city council look again maybe in 3 years, once this traffic is pushed to 6th Avenue, to allow that. I think that once the volumes drop from the current 18,000 down to, I don't know, maybe 6,000 or so, that we could probably justify doing that. He had mentioned it, the owner had mentioned it to me at an open house, actually for the roundabout, and asked me to follow up with him, and then he sent the letter. He was just kind of fishing, you might say, as far as making a request. I don't know that it was something that was do or die for his business or anything, but it was something he would just like to have had. So we have processed through that to make sure that he gets that response. So we have also notified him that as of Thursday we'd be discussing this and rejecting or recommending the rejection or denial of the request.
Dan, you're also going to have, once it's asphalted, Tom, a legal city parking lot almost behind his building. That'll park 30 cars maybe. So, I mean, he's going to have that parking available as well.
Yeah, I think he's just, I mean, that's,
I understand.
we talked about that in the parking lot and so forth. He's just really interested in parking out front. He has a lot of stop-by traffic. You know, they come in, grab something quick and leave, and he wants the convenience, which I totally understand.
Well, they do park beer trucks there pretty often, up a little ways.
And that was one of his comments, was that parking is occurring there now, and doesn't really seem to be a problem, but it's not happening, you know, it's happening during the day when people are more alert and et cetera, where, you know, at 5 o'clock in the evening or something might be an issue. So deliveries usually happen between 11 and 2 or 11 and 3. So.
They're parking on 9th Street along the east side of 9th Street, right there.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's parking here. Might even be some over in here.
2.
Is it
Oh,
good?
yeah, that's the VIP.
And obviously there's
Doesn't
parking
sound like it's the
up here as
issue is
well.
the availability of parking, because he's got parking in the back of his building too, but it just sounds like he wants the convenience of somebody driving,
Yeah.
that impulse kind of thing, where, you know, they pull right up and park and then go in.
Yep.
So he wants that convenience.
That's how you lose car doors, though.
So, but I think I see your point and agree that, you know, we have to kind of wait till the 6th Avenue corridor is developed, so that the traffic is diffused off of 7th.
Yeah, this is totally part of the plan by pushing the traffic to 6th Avenue, the central corridor, allows us to add that parking, add that pedestrian-friendly atmosphere, add the narrowing of the streets, which allows that on Front Street cafe-style situations, restaurants, and so forth. So this is part of that. We're just kind of jumping the gun.
Mm.
I wouldn't put my car out there unless I was ready to trade, and then I could take an insurance claim on it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any questions on anything else on the engineering agenda?
I know I have a question on something that isn't.
Okay.
That I ask. Dan, and it's a quick question. Cedar Rapids, that city to our west, is going to be building a large complex behind Granite City in the furniture store, senior housing up in that wooded land up there.
By Slumberland.
My concern is, have they or will they come and talk to us, because all that water is going to come down into Marion once it leaves that wooded area up there, and do we have the ability to make them figure out what they're going to do with their runoff up there?
I doubt that they will contact us. They don't typically. We deal with Home Depot. When Home Depot was built, we dealt with that after the fact, but we did. They have the same design standards basically that we have. We have SUDAS and they have the Metro standards. They haven't quite gotten over to SUDAS yet, but those are very similar as far as detention of stormwater. They have to include that 1 inch of runoff has to be detained for 24 hours. They have to create that 100-year storm post-development, 5-year storm prior. It's very similar. I mean, we probably wouldn't come to them either because we both have the same design standards. We may see something, but there would not be a direct, please comment on
Well,
this
the
kind of
creek is
situation.
down here and they're up here, the natural.
Yeah.
And they're gonna run through Marion's land to get to the creek unless they, and it's a huge complex. I saw the plans for it the other day.
That's more than I have.
Wow.
But we'll make some contacts and make sure that we get involved in that. But once again, they're going to do the
I
same.
just wondered.
Yeah, they're going to do the same design standards that we would for that same situation. So.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Planning.
I think that the first item is related to the public hearing on the annexation. I thought Kesha could kind of present that to the council today.
Good afternoon. I'm just going to briefly go through this. We've been working on this process. Basically, we got the initial annexation application in December. In January, we met with the neighborhood to go through this. We've since received another application making this a true 80-20 annexation. I know that there's been some discussion as far as what the city can do for the neighborhood and what is best for the long term for the city and the existing residents in the neighborhood and the city. So what I've done is I've basically composed and I've sent this out. This should have been attached in all of your memos that you received as part of your council packet, but the approving resolution for this annexation does note that the property will receive a 10-year transition on taxes, which is very in keeping with every other annexation that we've done of large lot residential lots. When they come into the city, they will see an increase in taxes, so we spread that, or we slowly bring on the city taxes over a 10-year period of time. The other points are more clarification points that it says the city is not interested at this time in providing them with services. We do need a request from them at that time. Staff will work with them to figure out the most cost-effective, efficient system that we would need to do. And similar to what Dan's done tonight on Shady Oak, we'd have different options come forward to City Council, and that would be a discussion at that time. That's nothing that we're solidifying costs or exact design before this meeting. That's all a future discussion. Talks about well water, talks about continued use of the properties, zoning uses. Ideally going forward, we'd have these properties as large lot residential, which is similar to other county subdivisions that we've annexed in and provided zoning for. Anybody have any questions from staff?
Questions?
What is the reaction of the non-consenting owners?
We have provided this for them to review, comments back. We've had meetings with a few of the council members, with the property owners, so that way everybody understands, city standpoint, long-term for the city. We've had meetings with them, and I had provided them, their request was to see the actual approving resolution. So what you have is what they've received as well. I would say minimal comments back from what I've sent them.
Well, I still think basically what they want is something in writing that they can come back on that is going to protect them.
Yep, and so everybody understands what the council's approving now. This is the understanding, this is the mindset of the council, of the neighborhood, when we approve it now. And so, yeah, going forward, we'd have an idea of at least where we stand today.
So the meeting on the 9th is a public hearing on this, then?
Yes.
Okay.
So after the public hearing, ideally Friday or Monday, we would send on copies of all of the notices, all of the everything that our hands have touched in the last basically 5 months. We send that on to the state, and then the state will hold their own public hearing, most likely in August, on this. And then, if the state approves it, it undergoes a 30-day wait period. And then most likely the soonest we would see full annexation approved by state, it gets recorded here locally, would be mid-September.
Okay.
And so that's when garbage, street maintenance, I think street maintenance is already happening, but that's ideally when the garbage and I think tree utility would come on board.
So the city goes in and cleans up the place, right?
I think that they're already maintaining out
I'm
there.
just
So,
kidding.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Number 5? No.
No, the next one's number 8.
No.
Most received correspondence from Kim Smith. I think the council got the memo on that in the letter from Ms. Smith. She contacted us with the concern, I think it was at the last meeting, she broached that with the council during the public session, and then she followed back up with a letter. We also attached the RV ordinance that we had proposed some years ago for review. Clearly, I mean, they're somewhat separate but somewhat the same request. I think the parking in the front and the ability to hard surface your front yard, while we don't receive that request very often, I can't say that no one's ever done it. I mean, there are people that have done that and parked in their front yard, which in most neighborhoods wouldn't look very appealing. So I do think that, if there's direction from council, we'd be happy to relook at that ordinance issue. And then we did supply the council with the RV ordinance, looking for some direction on that as well. Clearly, the request came in based on someone parking an RV in their front yard. And just to let the council know, we did propose some changes to that. I don't know that we need to go through that today, but if there's a time you'd like to hear about that, we can present that ordinance to the council and ask for some preliminary feedback or something as well. So that being said, I do think it makes some sense to take a look at the ordinance, the parking ordinance. And then if the council would like to hear more about RVs, we can put that on a future agenda item. Dave wrote the response here, and he identified that there was numerous citizen concerns. I think that public hearing was probably the largest public hearing that I've seen. There was overflow into the atrium. So there were a lot of folks here. And majority probably against, but quite a few people here as well that were for.
I think we found out neighbors don't talk to one another.
Yeah, we see that every day. So anyway, that's something that we would look for some direction from council. So if you'd like me to put a motion directing staff to proceed with a review of the parking ordinance, we can put that on for Thursday. And then if there's, I guess, a verbal consent, that if you guys want me to add as a discussion item that RV ordinance, I can do that as well.
Tom, have you heard from many homeowners about RVs parking and that they're...
It's a pretty standard complaint.
You do hear it very
RV
often?
parking, yeah. I don't know if Dave got a feeling on how many, but it is a very standard. I mean, I would say we probably receive one every couple weeks, especially if they sit for a period of time. Sometimes there's an understanding that if you have an RV and you park it in your driveway to clean it out or something, or it sits there for two days or something, but, there are places where they'll park them for the entire summer, store them in the winter. Some places that park them in the backyard all the time. So it can be somewhat of an issue in a neighborhood.
Did we ever put that on, like one of our surveys? I don't know.
I'd have to look. I know that was a question or a desire of the council. I just don't recall right offhand. I can check it out.
I know I don't know if you all are, but I am getting bombarded with these RVs and parking, what is constituted as, as you go through there and you read those, you can't make them offices, they can't be temporary housing, but how do you police it? What is temporary? What is permanent? What's the timeline? Who manages it?
Yeah.
I think we got, again, too, I don't know, what the League of Cities says, if if there's some kind of guideline we can go by. It's only going to get worse, isn't it, Chief?
We can't be the only city.
RVs are very popular. It's a tool for destinations and for wintering, and they're just very popular. And then, of course, what's an RV? Is it a fifth wheel? Is it a trailer with a traditional, tongue on it? Is it a motorhome, with wheels, et cetera, et cetera? So obviously our definitions have to be very broad. I know in the insurance industry they're very broad. We have to be broad with it on this as well, too. I would be in favor of directing staff to review these things. It's just something that we're going to have to deal with.
So both the RV ordinance and the front yard parking.
That would be my opinion. I just think it's maybe time to retune that a little bit. I think we have to be conscious of, whether it's parked on the grass, whether it's on the concrete. So therefore, I'll just go ahead and I'll pour a pad in the front yard and call it a parking spot. Is it part of the driveway? I know a lot of that stuff just gets twisted a lot of directions. But again, too, I'm the only one speaking up here, so I think maybe it's something that we should come in and maybe start addressing this again.
Is there anybody who would be opposed to having this looked at again?
I would like to know as well what applies to construction trailers. I see those backed in between houses, and I don't know what the rules are on those, but I'm sure you have neighbors with the same feeling on some of those as RVs.
I think in some of that there is a fine line between what is a recreational vehicle and a contractor's, because we do have, we have a lot of small businesses.
Are there every day, all year, though,
Yeah, it's not.
And I know we're also dealing with some covenants. There's local covenants in neighborhoods that we're going to be going up against as well too. So there's going to be some of those issues to address as well too. So I, in my opinion, again, I think that's something that maybe we need to start, from a 30,000 foot view, starting to kind of put some eyes on that again, because I think it's going to get worse as it goes on. If we don't address the problem, it's just going to continue to spiral.
Yeah, we receive on a regular basis the contractor vehicles as well. A lot of that leads to home occupation. So it's and one of the questions, I'm sure most of the council knows this, but the city gets stuck in a position with the covenants. You mentioned them. The covenants are enforceable by the owners or association.
It's private.
And we get calls a lot of times and try to get pulled into that. And what we generally try to do is say that's a civil matter between your organization and you as a property owner. But that we do get pulled into those.
Yeah, it's a private kind of contractual right in the neighborhood. But where we as a city come in is above and beyond whatever they might have. What do we, want to impose as restrictions?
And Randy, when that came up before, Cash has spent a lot of time doing this ordinance, and then it got denied or rejected. And I guess I was on the one that said no, because I feel like, within reason, people ought to do in their yard what they can. It's their castle, and they should be able to do what they want. But there's reasonability in that too, and so that was why I voted against it when it came up before. And before we send them off spending a lot of time, make sure that's what we want to do. That's my point, because you guys spent months working on this.
Yeah, and that's why. And I guess my feeling would be that we would just bring back for a presentation. I know you have the ordinance. If you want me to just kind of present it and let you guys, we can talk through some things on it, and then get some direction after that, specific to the RVs. But I do think the parking issue in the front, I think if everybody sounds like that, that's a no kind of move forward with. So.
I think what you're proposing sounds reasonable.
Is that? So I'll put something on the agenda related to this.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering, with that ordinance, what if we just implemented a part of the RV ordinance, a little step-by-step, little baby steps, so it's not.
And I think
so-
that's what I would be looking for. When
Yeah.
we present it, we'd maybe have some different levels identified, like we could do X, Y, and Z, primarily focus the front, whatever. So, yep, we can do that.
Commercial definition is really important, I think, Tom, so we know what the rules are on.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
I've always said it's not my Winnebago's fault that they took a really good Chevy truck and made a motorhome out of it, you know?
Yeah. There's always an interpretation of the definition, so we like to have a very specific one. I did not identify or talk about number 5, if we can go back to that public hearing. This is on a future land use map amendment and a rezoning for Highway 13. And there was quite a lengthy report in the packet, and this is related to the project it's actually under construction out there on the south side of the project. Platinum Homes has been building the apartments with the townhomes at Front Prairie Hill. Looks really nice out there. So there's a piece of the project that is zoned commercial currently. I'm just going to give you it in a nutshell. I think you guys have heard this one.
Been through this.
What's that?
We've been through this, haven't we?
I think in the receive and file we have.
Yeah.
So the mixed use on the corner, this area here that's highlighted is proposed to be rezoned. So it's currently C3 and it's going to a residential zoning district classification to accommodate these residential units, multifamily 12plexes. So and they're similar to the ones that are to the south. This did go to the Planning Commission, and in the report it talks about it, but there were a lot of neighborhood concerns regarding this. There were a few people that had contacted us after the fact, wanting to have more discussions. I don't think we've had the opportunity to meet with them, and there hasn't been a continuation on that conversation. I think some of the concerns the neighbors were based on the idea that this would be a family-oriented commercial operation out here and that would support the neighborhood. And, you know, our indication at the meeting was we have no family-oriented commercial. Those first 2 words don't mean anything in zoning. If it's zoned commercial, it's zoned commercial. So it could be a McDonald's, it can be a Dollar General, it could be whatever retail kind of establishment. We feel that based on the location, the residential on the south, the limited access to 29th Avenue and the mixed use on the corner, that this is the ideal situation for the neighborhood and everybody concerned. So I'm sure there'll be people here on Thursday to discuss this at the public hearing. I bet we spent probably half hour, 40 minutes on it at P&Z. So just be prepared. There'll be some folks here to talk about it and hear their concerns. So it is an amendment to the future land use map, which is a portion of the comprehensive plan, which designates generalized land uses in the area, and then the rezoning would, once the comp plan is amended, the rezoning would be supported by the comp plan.
And Linmar hasn't had any issues with the multifamily?
There wasn't really too much of a concern about it. That
was one of the things the neighborhood had said, that, you know, there's already overcrowding in Lynn Grove.
Yeah, and actually what we're hearing from a population or perspective, the units that are out there, there's very limited kids, I think, even in the units. The developer could speak to that probably on Thursday a little bit more, but that was a concern, and the owners had indicated that they really haven't had a lot of families move in, but not to say they couldn't. So.
Right. Now, they're already under construction?
No, the unit south of here, there's a development
right.
that was already zoned multifamily. That is under construction. So this is taking commercial ground, moving it into multifamily to provide for the addition of 4 more units, and then the corner would be a mixed-use development. And the reason you're familiar with this is that we talked about the mixed use and adding the ability to put residential above commercial. We made an amendment to the code to allow for that.
Now, am I under the correct? I've been told that that's already been, the way it's zoned currently, it can have these, so the zoning is fine right now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. That's why it's
just the comprehensive
It's ready to go. Yeah, they could be grading out there right now and putting in.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So that's ready to go. And this could be commercial too currently, but they're proposing to change it, so that's
change it
where
so
we're
it's
at.
not.
Yep.
Tom, don't you think that's going to help when 50th Street goes through to 29th? Because what I hear is the traffic, people are concerned. And once people have an escape out of there, in the apartments.
Yeah, so this is Prairie Hill.
Right.
And then 50th will extend out too.
Right.
Out as well. So there'll be more, the traffic will be spread. It won't just be at one point. Yep.
Is there currently, there's no houses to the east of that, or west of that right now?
Yes. Yes.
Now, one of the concerns back when we were talking about the condos being built behind Brookside, over on Brookside Drive, and we had them move not put any condos right there by it. I just wonder, putting this pretty big structure right there by a residential, is that going to be an issue, or should it be a little bit more to the east or something?
Well, normally that would be what we'd kind of talk about at the time the area was zoned, and this is property's preliminary platted, and the property was zoned many years ago with the preliminary plat, so the whole development plan has really been consistent. The only change at this time is to move from the commercial to residential, which is really downzoning from an intensity use. So this would certainly be, I think from the neighborhood, it would be a much more desirable than having the commercial use in that location.
I guess what I'm saying is, should it be in line with the apartments that are already, get it further back?
Oh, back here?
Yeah, move it up along that line.
Actually, the desire would be similar to this, is to have it a little more forward, so it's not just sitting out in the middle. But this unit will be built with parking in front, primarily because of some of the commercial. If you go out there now, there's probably, is it 2 or 4 units south of where we're going, Mark?
2.
Yeah.
So there's already 2 units here. So if you took this and flipped it down here, there's already 2 units here. So I think it fits well from a design perspective.
I was thinking more though your multi-use building there.
This?
There, move that over to the right.
Back here?
Yeah. Switch the parking lot from the back to the front.
And again, our desire is really to kind of bring that up and make it walkable instead of having a giant parking lot. And in this situation, you've got parking on both sides. It even has the opportunity for another building on the. We actually asked them to move it forward.
Okay.
From a design perspective, that's just better. It makes it more walkable.
Is that building on the north side that's already being built, or they're going to build that right now too?
I don't know what their plan for it is at this point. We've reviewed the site plan and we've reviewed the building. I think we're in the middle of building plan review, and so.
So just the apartments right now?
Yep. This is the only thing we're really talking about.
Right, okay.
By walkable, you mean more easily accessible with pedestrian
correct.
traffic?
Yeah. More accommodating. If you have to walk through one tier of parking, that's not that bad from the sidewalk. But 2 tiers, I think, would be a little more difficult to really maneuver, especially for kids and families. I can see this area is going to lead it, because there's apartments above it. It's not like you're going to have a strong, heavy retail. I think you're going to see more of the neighborhood coffee shop, Parlor City. I think you're just going to get that. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Subway, probably.
Yeah. There may be a drive-through on one end. I don't know if that's been proposed or not, but so I know they're proposing that there be outdoor seating areas on this side to accommodate a restaurant or something. So.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Moving down to number 9, is a motion to receive, file, a deferment on some sidewalks. We'll review that and get back to the council. It's just to receive and file at this point. Information in the packet. I don't know if anybody had any comments on that off the hand, so we'll bring back a recommendation. And then 10 and 11, these are plats of surveys related to the Lebanon mattress store being constructed on 7th Avenue.
Is that a two-story building? Is that gonna be 2 stories?
No, it is 1 story.
It's just
It's
one?
just a little taller roof, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, what we're doing is trying to clean up, we're gonna probably, as we go through, down through the corridor, you're gonna see a number of plats of surveys, and then that'll be followed up with a final plat, because we're dealing with ground that's been platted for many years, trying to straighten up some boundaries. We got the railroad property with some jagged edges and curves that we're gonna try and clean up a little bit. So the red outline would be the property that is currently owned, or the property that will be the future full site of the Levita building. If you go out there right now, you'll see there's a building being constructed here. There's a proposal to trade a little piece of ground here and a little piece of ground here between these two property owners. So what we're doing is we're creating a plat of survey, and then the two pieces will be transferred. This is the railroad right-of-way that will be split off with the plat of survey, and then ultimately be a part of the development agreement that'll come forward with the urban renewal plan and the TIF assistance. So this is just creating the parcels, and then the development agreement will come and kind of wrap it all together, and then what we'll ultimately get is a final plat. And you'll see this, it'll be lot 1 of whatever edition they want to call it. So, and that'll create a good solid lot of record with a good legal description, a good title, opinion, and a solid abstract. So we're trying to clean up a lot of these properties as we go down through there. So it's not lot 1 and plat of survey X, Y, and Z, and plat of survey X, Y, and Z.
So will that create then, Tom, the line that'll go down through that old railway bed as you go further to the east? So when those are parceled back off again, they're all going to line up?
Yep. So,
okay.
See, that's what I mean. So we'll probably at some point have some kind of plat of survey here and here, and then we'll combine them all. Unless we can do a larger plat and then just, replat them as final.
And then the adjacent side, the south side will back up to it then coming the other direction, correct?
Correct. Yep. And the south line's pretty solid. There's not a lot of parcel splits on the south side. It's primarily on the north. That's where the railroad yard got really wide, about 150, 200 feet wide at some point. So we've been using that, as kind of an incentive for redevelopment.
Will there be access off of 7th Avenue into this property?
Off of 7th?
Yeah.
Yes, it's right here.
Okay, and then on 6th, you'll have to go down to down?
Will there be access on 6th eventually?
Yes, it's a shared access.
So you'll have to have some kind of agreement between them to have a roadway to get
Correct.
Up to it?
Yep.
So will that be part of this plat that you're talking about coming?
Yeah, and we've already got some of the language put together on that.
That's a right in, right out too, Tom.
Yeah, it's a right in, right out. Yep. So there'll be two access points between the roundabout and 22nd Street on the north side. So that's kind of what we're trying to figure out at this point.
Yeah.
This project's been kind of a push on the corridor project. It's the first one out of the gate. There's a big desire for Levita to relocate to accommodate some other space issues on their project site. So it's kind of a learning experience. There's a lot of steps in all these projects that involve the railroad right away. So a lot of it's real estate and legal.
Who owns the land of so there's the swap, and then there's the railroad right-of-way that you're putting into this one parcel?
Yep.
Who owns the land right now?
Right now, I believe that
City owns the railroad right-of-way?
We own the railroad right-of-way, correct.
And it's been
And this is either Russ Miller or Tim Mooney. I don't know if that transfer's occurred, but the transfer is to...
They're just swapping. But the city's giving them the railroad right-of-way.
Yeah, and then there's some property on the front that we'll receive as a part of this. We get like 7 or 8 feet off the front for right-of-way.
The right-of-way.
Yep.
So the city gets the front right-of-way, and then we're giving them the back right-of-way.
Yep.
So there's no monies to give them this
Correct.
land.
Yep.
The piece to the east is Genesis Equities,
Yeah.
which is on the west edge of the roundabout. So
Right.
Oh,
it ends right there. So
The salvage yard had pretty well taken over the railroad right-of-way back there, as I remember.
Yep.
When they cleaned that, they were pretty deep into it, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the property line.
The reason I asked that, Tom, is Tim had asked me about this access road in the back probably a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And so I was just making sure that got agreed to and all that.
Yeah, we've got an approved site plan that combined of the two
Okay.
parcels. Yeah, they could actually build what they're building now without the rear. So that's one of the reasons it was allowed. I mean, it's a lot of record. So they can pull a permit on it legally. So everything was done above board. We were just looking at the long-term plan for that. So that's where there's an additional building planned and an access, an on-site detention. So it's all being kind of accommodated as a part of the whole project.
We've provided an access easement from that joint access over to the car wash as well, so.
Yeah, so it comes, I didn't bring the site plan, but you'll see that as the development agreement comes together, but it comes like this. So there's a building here, I believe, and a building up in here, and the parking kind of comes through like that. So I can provide that. Comes in and goes out, yeah.
So to get in from 6th Avenue, get into the car wash, you go in and through the center of the property to get into it.
No, what we're saying is that we've provided an access through this They will not get direct access, so there will be access. Yeah, yep. If they ever desired it, if it redevelops. So, yep.
So, did the city pay money for the right-of-way, the railroad right-of-way?
This right away?
Yes.
We did. When we bought the entire railroad in 2007.
35th.
Up to 35th?
Yeah.
So
35th to the city limits west.
Was there something discussed in previous councils about, are we just giving?
It's a part of the
property?
incentive package, so that's it's part of the development agreement that was worked out with them.
Was to give them that. What about other property along, or other owners along, future owners along the 6th Avenue? Are we going to be giving?
It would be a part of an incentive package down through there. That's correct. I don't know if I don't know that I would necessarily call it a gift, but it's a part of the development process. So they'll be reviewed as a part of it. A lot of these properties have significant brownfield expenses. You'll see some dollars come in on this site that I think will be interesting. There were 7 underground tanks on that site when it was purchased, unbeknownst to the owner. So that's why we do the phase 1, phase 2s. So there's a lot of environmental issues. I think the Marion Iron, one of the initial costs, just estimates, was a couple $100,000. Luckily, that didn't have to happen. So there's a lot of cost associated with environmental issues that someone could take their business and go plop it down on a greenfield site on the edge of town for a little bit of nothing. So as we work through projects, that's why we use the TIF incentive, is to provide offset some of the cost to redevelop property that has environmental contamination or issues. And like this, we can provide additional ground as a part of that incentive as well. It also provides us the opportunity to get a good solid review of the project. Yeah, and to say what it looks like and conversation about it. So.
Is that building brick veneered? I know we didn't want to allow any more
full-sided brick.
Pardon me?
It's 4-sided brick.
Yeah, all 4 sides.
Yep. Yeah. Which we normally don't get that, but sometimes.
Well, I know they said no more pole buildings, and I just wondered.
Yep. There's specific design standards on the corridor that we have in place, as the council's aware.
Frame.
I would say it's frame.
But I think we want to set a standard for higher quality development in this area, and so I'm glad to see that it's 4-sided brick.
Yeah, I believe I think the project was presented at one time to council. Maybe I'm incorrect, but if not, I'll get you the elevations and the site plan for review. Like I said, this isn't doing any of the transfers. This is just identifying the parcels and legally describing them in a recordable document. For sure. So we'll come back with as a matter of fact, the public hearings were on the agenda, and I think we're going to have to push those because of some other issues. But at that time, there'll be a more in-depth conversation about the specifics. I'm not involved in a lot of that side of it, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. On the administrator agenda, there's nothing that's starred. Is there anything you wanted to talk about? Because there's a couple, I want to talk about numbers 1 and 2, but if there's anything else that, Amanda, you needed to talk about, or nothing is starred, so.
Nothing to start, we don't have anything
Okay.
to talk about,
Well,
unless you want to talk about that.
we can knock that 3 through.
On number 1, the naming policy, I just wanted to see if any, we were presented with this policy by Lon, and I just wanted to see if anybody had questions, or how are you coming on reviewing it? I think we should act on it sooner than later, so just kind of what's everybody's general feeling on the policy? Are there questions? We need to give suggestions to Lon or comments to Lon, or are we ready to?
No, I have a concern about things that, I think of things that have happened in the past that we wouldn't have. And Nancy Miller Library, we wouldn't have a Pat and Vic Kloppenstein amphitheater. We wouldn't have a Peg Pierce softball diamond. We wouldn't have 5 parks if all those people would have had to have been deceased before they named. So I have a problem with that section of it, Mayor. What little ability I have on the internet, and I know Kim has a lot more ability than I, and she's been looking at other cities' naming rights. And we don't find that in a lot of them, and I think of incidents in the future where we may have something we really want, and what if somebody offered us $1 million for the Tower Terrace Road Bridge for naming rights, who was a living person? They're doing that in their honor, all of those people that have had things named.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we shouldn't have that in there, in my opinion.
Okay. Other comments or observations?
I also agree. I don't think you have to be dead to have something named after you. So I think that should come out also.
Okay.
I agree. Remove it.
Any other observations?
I guess I have a couple things I want to point out. A couple of the, kind of going back to the parks and stuff, a lot of those things are, some of the land and stuff that's donated, separation between facilities, whether they're civil. I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. Seems like our parks are named, they have one set of rules. Our other municipality buildings have another. I guess I would like to see some dividing lines there to be very specific about those.
Just do that.
And perhaps, perhaps it's being outlined here. And I have to apologize. This is the first time I've seen this. I've seen the original. Is this the revised copy from Lon?
I don't think
it
it's
just
been
showed up in
revised.
front of me tonight, so I don't know.
The council didn't direct us to revise
Yeah,
anything at that last meeting where it was presented by Lon.
Yeah, there's been no revision.
Okay.
I think they're just
So this is the
giving
current-
it back to us again so we can,
Okay.
so you have it for convenience.
Okay.
Okay.
This would be for the whole city.
Right.
So the Parks Board would have to go off of this
This
also.
would kind of solve what you're talking
Yeah.
about, I think. It's the purpose of it.
That's my understanding. Correct?
And you're
To be
right.
fair.
I mean,
The Parks
'cause
Board
is-
couldn't name something off and not follow this.
Yeah, I
policy.
think according to this policy is park board or public service board
Right, everybody.
or any board would have to then provide that recommendation to council, and council would need to concur with that.
Because I think from all the projects you mentioned, Paul, aside from the library, all those other naming opportunities came through recommendations of the Parks Board.
Correct.
So, yeah. So. Okay, other observations?
We're just discussing it tonight, we're not.
Right. I just, I'm trying to get a feel of where we're headed with this. I think we want to get something that everybody's comfortable with to act on, at some point.
I think it's critical, because as we move on, we got a lot of territory, we got a lot of new buildings going up on, and I think it would be very good to have an outline program, or an outline scope of how we're going to do that going forward.
Yeah, and when is it appropriate? And
Right, exactly. So I think it's critical, and I think we should,
Well, and if we would remove J, I think for I, we would have to remove the 7, number 7, that's part of I, right?
Under general,
Yeah.
I-7.
Okay, well, everybody can take time to look through it and make any other recommendations or comments soon. That would be great. But we won't put it on the agenda for Thursday, right? We need more time to look at it.
Should we have it on the agenda at the end of the month to approve it, or where do you want to go with it?
I mean, I want to make sure everybody's ready to vote on it. But is it reasonable to say by the end of the month?
I would say so. I believe we need to have, whatever discussion we need to have this evening to move forward so we can get it on the agenda for work session on our next meeting, and then get it on the agenda for our final for the month, would be my opinion. Otherwise, it's going to stall, continue to keep stalling. Are those the only two, section I, paragraph 7 and J are the only two that are paired together in the deceased versus the living? Is that okay?
Yeah, I think so. So, discussion. I-6, they have to be outstanding civil volunteer service with the city for a minimum of 10 years. Well, it kind of goes back to what Paul said. What if someone wanted to donate $1 million to a bridge to name it after them? And but they haven't been involved in the city for the 10-year period.
Right.
So is that, should that be taken out?
Maybe.
That list isn't an inclusive list. If you look, number 3 addresses that, made substantial contributions to a facility. So it's not you don't have to hit every single thing on the list. It's just a consideration, a list of considerations, from what I understand.
What I would be a list of considerations? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so that is the criteria that is considered when naming, and so that is a full list. It's not, you don't have to have every single piece on the list checked off in order to.
Sure. I guess my understanding of that would be, okay, I get what you're saying. Okay.
Do subdividers name the streets? Do they ask us how, is that what happens? I'm thinking of the mobile home park. They got all street names, and a lot of them with somebody's name on them. That was before, and this is after, is that?
Those are brought in, approved as a part of the preliminary plat. So we do have a say in those.
This was an existing mobile home park, I'm thinking of. The Marion Park.
So private streets?
Yeah.
We still have a little review on that, but.
Not much, huh? Okay.
If it's a fire or police safety issue. We don't want like 4 streets named the same, so we would definitely.
Well, we got 2 now, right?
We should put in there that you can't name it after staff out of spite. That would probably be a good thing to have. I've seen
Says
that
a
done.
review to the planning commission on whether they're private or public.
Okay.
We talk about number 8.
Well, I have one more.
Oh,
Are
sorry.
we finished with this?
I think so.
The approval of adopting the TIF policy, I don't know where we are with that, because my understanding was that we were going to get some input from people who are actually affected by the TIF policy, like developers, people who bring these projects to the city. I don't know if Lon's not here to answer the question, but do you know if we ran it by developers, if we...
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know, Nick, if you've shared it with anyone from your organization.
I know when Lon left, he said he thought this was ready, but again, I don't know if there's anything that you got to add.
We did send it out to all of our developers that at least we have relationships with, because I'm not sure that had been done. I haven't heard any specific feedback from anyone, so that's usually normal, obviously. But at least that was put out in front of folks to respond if they needed. I personally feel like there's a few questions that we've asked that haven't been clarified. I think and hope that everyone here has had an opportunity to read through it, and at the end of the day, if you can answer, I understand every single part of the policy, then perhaps it's ready to go. But I have a couple areas of it that aren't exactly clear to me. So I don't know if there's a hurry to get this through, but I think there's still some questions that I'm not sure can be answered here today.
That's a valid question. I haven't heard any questions or comments from the council on the policy or specific provisions of it, how it works. Is everybody comfortable with it?
I think personally, from my perspective, we haven't moved anywhere from when it was last presented before us.
Okay.
I don't know any more or any less. I know there was some conversation that we were going to talk to some of the local businesses about that. I know Medco had questions. I know the Chamber's got questions. I don't feel like we've moved anywhere. So I'm no different than where we were 2 months ago.
Why don't we just push it back, Your Honor?
Yeah.
For
It's
a couple
28
weeks.
pages. Lon won't be here.
I know there were supposed to be some things that were supposed to be addressed, and they haven't been. If they have been, I haven't been present, and they would have been private meetings. So.
Okay, so if you haven't become familiar with it, then let's try to do that again by the next meeting, so that.
Would you send me your questions, Nick, on that? Because I would like to have some of that feedback that we can share on some of those as well. Would that be possible? Okay.
Structurally, as I look at it, again, like I just said on microphone, I'll just repeat. I would just say read through it, and if there's areas that aren't clear, which I think there might be.
My whole thought was for us not to act on it this week with Lon not even here to answer questions if we have questions.
Okay.
So that was my thought.
We'll just push it back a couple. And
All right.
also for your information, Your Honor, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are going to be taken off, will not be on for Thursday.
4, 5, 6, 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Anderson Automotive. Amanda, am I right in that our previous TIF policy, I believe, excluded retail? And I don't see that in the 28 pages. I've read half of them.
I'm not sure right off the top of my head what that would be, but as the staff continues to review this in the interim before the next meeting that it comes up on, we can put that down as a question too.
Okay,
address.
thank you.
My understanding too, it did not include retail, and now it would include
Now
retail.
it would appear.
Right.
Yeah, I think that the thinking has changed on that.
Well, I guess my comment, and I don't know if planning has, a TIF incentive is not tied to necessarily the business that operates in it. It's
Right.
tied to the real estate and the value of the actual commercial real estate. There might be a retail business that operates within that property, but the incentive is not tied to that business. It's tied to improvements to the actual physical property.
Those are often the people who apply, though, Nick.
Right, but like for instance,
Lincoln View.
there's what's that?
Lincoln View would be a good one.
Yeah.
Like
Or even uptown projects. Like any incentive considered for those projects aren't about the business within. It's about improving that real estate so that a retail business or whatever can operate in that property. And that's where if you look at the policy, like when you look at Uptown, for instance, there's specific criteria as far as things that the city will help to support that are related to challenges of Uptown property, like ADA accessibility, like if an elevator is installed, public safety type issues. It really has nothing to do with if it's a bike shop or a restaurant. It's about really protecting and investing in that building that increases the revenue that's produced by that building for the city and for the other taxing entities.
So much of that money, though, is invested, we've learned, in the building for particular use. And
sure, but that doesn't make it exclusive to that
as an example I can give you, we've wondered if a beer brewery is a retail operation or a wholesale operation, because we have one. And all the money that's been invested in that building is specifically for that renter.
Sounds like a deep question.
So you have everything else eligibility, but it's retail. Here before, my understanding was not eligible.
But again, if there's not investments made in that property that are increasing the assessed value of that building, there's no incentive to be provided. Because there's no revenue.
I sure hope they don't increase the assessed value of that building, but believe me, they will considerably.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay. Joe, did you have?
I just had a question on number 8, what people thought about closing 7th Avenue for events. I guess I would not like to see that happen.
So this is a receive and file, and then I assume that the staff would give us
I think there was petitions from...
the petition requesting to close 7th Avenue. So it's not a petition. Is it an application, or is it a letter requesting?
This was a petition that was submitted to the city, so there is no staff report associated with it.
But is it like a petition signed by?
By owners of businesses of 7th Avenue.
Okay. So at some point you would give us a report on that, or?
Don't want to see that?
I mean...
Today or ever?
Well, no, this is for special, whenever they have music and stuff up there, but... I see a lot of those people coming out of the park jaywalking, and I think that was their main thing, is that, let people go, allow people to go anywhere they want coming across 7th Avenue. And, there's walkways, and people almost always stop to let you across. So...
Well, I think there's something that you want TAC to look at, too, and give a report on before council makes any kind of decision.
Yeah, they talk about safety. I'd like to know if we've had any pedestrians injured by vehicle traffic on 7th Avenue.
I mean, a lot of people won't stop if you're not in those walkways. So.
Yeah, you almost have to step out for them to stop in most cases.
Yeah.
If you're just standing there, they're going to keep going. But if you step out, most of the time they will, but I would be in guard, when you step out to make sure they are going to stop.
Yeah.
They're supposed to, but I'm not going to say they're all going to do that.
Very good there. People do slow down and stop for you.
If you're the mayor, they don't want to hit the mayor.
In some of those events, we have a police officer there, as you well know, that makes sure they stop.
Right.
I don't know that we can do that every time.
I think that's going to be another one that will be interesting to follow when our roundabouts get put through and the flow of traffic changes. Because you're right, you see, I mean, we got to remember, though, that is also a highway. That is 151. So
That was my question.
I can't speak on the chief's behalf, but that is an emergency route through our corridor for ambulance, fire, police, shutting it down. People that are not familiar with our town and forcing them to take a detour at certain times. I think right now is a bad time to do it without this corridor done. But
yeah, I can tell you right now.
we're just receiving and filing, so.
I haven't talked to Deb, but I can tell you right now the police is totally against this at this point. This makes no sense. I don't care what they got going uptown.
Yep.
We
What
need
about
that.
what about when 6 is fit all the way, completely done?
Yeah.
I mean, is that even a possibility then?
Well, I think we really look like Dan said, when we get only 6,000 cars compared to 18, there's a difference. But right now, I agree with the parking issue. We shouldn't allow that. And closing this down now, I think is a bad move at this point. In the future, we need to look at it, and that would be what TAC would do. But I think Deb will agree with me. Shutting 7th Avenue down is not a good idea right now.
It should probably wait till after 6th is completed, the corridor through there.
I agree.
Okay. Anything else? No other questions? Okay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I just wanted to address number 12. It was brought back from the prior meeting. It is an amendment to the existing 28E agreement that the city has with the City of Cedar Rapids Civil Rights Commission. We created a Civil Rights Commission in 2011 due to the population growth. Just 2 years ago is when our actual Civil Rights Commission was established. So this 28E agreement was in place from the beginning, and now that we've had an established commission for 2 years, there's the need to update it to better reflect the services that we actually need from the professional staff there. So this will still cover, they'll still provide all the intake services for the city of Marion for all the cases, and then route them either to the Iowa Civil Rights Commission or HUD, or to investigate them internally in Cedar Rapids. They also provide all educational trainings to commissioners and new commissioners.
Questions? Okay.
Tom's got something over here, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just so the council's aware, and if there are concerns with this, a few meetings ago there was a desire for the city to, or the council directed staff to proceed with negotiating purchase of property related to Tower Terrace Road, the Asgard property. It's between Winslow and Indian Creek. We did get signed purchase agreements in, and we'd like to get those approved. So I was going to put those on the city council agenda for Thursday. It's not on the agenda today, and I can walk through those. But we've got Ann with the attorney's office has prepared the purchase agreements they've been through and reviewed. So we're good to go on that. And if you recall, that was the one where we agreed rather than it was the 130% of the value in lieu of moving expenses and such. What's that? Yeah, in lieu of Chapter 6B. So it's been a while since we talked about it, but we finally got her put together. So any concerns with that? I can explain it on Thursday if there's a desire to do something.
You're going to put it on the agenda then Thursday?
Yeah, I was going to put it on the agenda. I didn't have the opportunity to get it on before publication for today's meeting, but I'll put it on and then go through them on Thursday.
Very good. Okay. Good. Thank you. Thanks. Meeting adjourned for the second time.